The West Country is at the forefront of a revolution in beer making. In the last year, more breweries have opened in Britain than at any point since records began, and many of them are being set up here in our region.
But the expansion's happening in the shadow of a huge beer tax rise. Producers want the government to give them a break in Wednesday's budget. Robert Murphy reports on the boom of the breweries.
You're about to hear the ring of first orders. Andrew Toll is starting one of the first runs at his microbrewery in Bristol. It's one of many new beer companies popping up all over the West Country. He's been in the industry all his working life, and this is a joint venture with his wife, who's also given up her day job as a teaching assistant.
Why have you decided to set up a microbrewery?
I think it's always been Andrew's dream to have his own brewery, and since I met him, he's always been at his happiest when he's brewing, so I guess now it's become a family dream.
It's bottling time at a well-established microbrewery, the Bristol Beer Factory. 6 small brewers have come together here. Usually rivals, they were making this porter ahead of the city's beer festival last weekend. My cameraman spotted an opportunity.
We wanted to brew something a little bit special and something that also looked back to Bristol's history of brewing. So we decided on a porter style of beer, which is a dark beer. We've given it a bit of a modern twist. In centuries gone by, we actually used to export an awful lot of dark beer, porters particularly, from Bristol to Ireland.
The bars.
Remember the 1980s? Lager was king. Clever adverts. And we followed the bear as cask ale barrels dried up.
A great lager. Follow the bear.
But real ale is really back. 150 breweries have opened in the last year, more than ever before, many in the West Country. Yes, a lot are small and there are big challenges, but it seems drinkers these days want a little more from their pint.
The clientele, totally mixed. Young ladies, middle-aged men, young executives, right across the board. People are actually loving it at the moment.
It's no longer the preserve of old, fat, bearded men, or even young, thin, bearded men like John Ashby. He's the landlord of Bristol's Griffin pub, perhaps the region's first real ale stroke heavy metal pub. Behind the fake spider web, pump signs boast that in 18 months of business, he's served 250 different beers, and he's converted a few lager-drinking metal fans along the way.
They've really come into their own and talking about real ales much more now. And whenever I get new guests on, they go, oh, this is nice, and they describe it to me, and they get much more involved. Whereas a lager, they'll just go, oh, it's a lager. It tastes of lager.
But not everything in the brewing industry is rosy. Pubs are closing at a rate of 16 a week, and there's a big argument about how much tax is paid.
In 2008, you paid about 38 pence of your pint in beer duty, but it goes up with inflation. That's high, so this year you'll pay about 56p a pint. And Publicans wants this week's budget to slow this rise. In North Somerset, a company that used to be a microbrewery, but had to drop the micro because of its success. Butcombe is sold across the country. That's paid for a string of pubs it now owns. And it's just been named as the fastest growing producer of bottled beer in Britain. So advice please to the new small startups.
Most microbreweries make the mistake of setting up without the infrastructure to sell. They don't know where they're going to sell to. They haven't got a brand, and therefore they're straight away in the pile it high, sell it cheap brigade. Consumers want to drink a brand.
After years in the doldrums, these are good days for real ales. Robert Murphy, North Somerset, for the West Country Tonight.